Hey, what up? It's your boy Rob coming back at you once again with another video. So before we get into this video, you already know what to do. Please smash that like button, trying to get these subscriptions up and trying to get these videos circulated into the algorithm. If you are not subscribed, you already know what else to do. Hit that bell icon twice. Please share this to your social media networks and let's get this popping. Now, if you have seen some of my other content, I always ask the question, the red pill. We talk about the red pill a lot. The red pill is a reference to the movie Matrix. And in the movie Matrix, Neo took the red pill as his first step in getting unplugged. And what the red pill did was it disconnected his neural synapses from the Matrix software, allowing him to disconnect and reconnect at his own will to the hardware. But before that process took place, it caused him to wake up to some unpleasant truths. One of those truths was that artificial intelligence had taken over and enslaved humanity. All right. Now, fast forward to today, because I believe the Matrix came out in 1993. All right. Today it is ending 2020. We are now moving into 2021. All right. And an idea called red pill that has many sub ideas has come into mainstream. Now, my question is red pill for everybody? Because there are many different areas of red pill. There's political red pill. There is, when it comes to relationships, red pill truths. What is red pill? And is it harmful? Is it propaganda? What is it? The purpose of this video is to be a thought exercise and a discussion, and hopefully people will be able to bounce ideas off of this and let me know exactly what they think. Now, this video is being broadcasted in terms of me, a black heterosexual male, and my question is red pill ideology healthy for black people? Now, how does red pill ideology affect black people? Me personally, I have no idea, because if you've watched any of my past videos, it is my belief that black people are not connected to the matrix that makes up our current reality. And I've voiced my reasons on why I believe that. I would like you to reference my video on if blacks can be a part of the red pill. Now, I have to ask, I see a lot of separate, quote, black movements rising up out of this red pill ideology. And, you know, sometimes you see collaboration works and you see people validating each other. But my question is, do these people actually know the root of where all of this stuff leads? Basically, from my observation, it seems like this stuff leads to you being at the bottom of the food chain. And I will explain exactly why I feel that way. All right. So first, let's go to this article that The Guardian wrote. All right. And this article has to do with the unwelcome revival of race science. There is a book that is called The Bell Curve that I quote quite often, and it does its best to explain in some ways social outcomes based on IQ. All right. The main point of the book is that there are some races that have naturally higher or lower IQs, which, similar to male and female, if that book was true, it would mean that all men are not created equal. Interesting, right? Now, there's another book, and I believe that book is called IQ in Society, and it's very similar to what the bell curve says. Now, the Guardian calls this racist science or race-based science. This is a very long article, and I will probably go back over this, but I want to highlight these bullet points. So here it says, the unwelcome revival of race science. Its defenders claim to be standing up for uncomfortable truths. Now, when we talk about uncomfortable truths, we talk about a red pill, right? A red pill is an uncomfortable truth. The terms red pill and blue pill refer to a choice revealing an unpleasant or otherwise life-changing truth. Represented by the red pill, and remaining in blissful ignorance, represented by the blue pill. So, what a lot of these red pill people, the ones who don't look like me and you, want you to wake up and believe is that you are intellectually and genetically inferior to them. All right, it's one of the things that Hitler believed, one of the things that early colonial America believed, and it's one of the things that a lot of people cited by a lot of, quote, red pillars believe. It's one of the things that those kind of people use to make their gender equality arguments. All right. So in this next highlighted part, it says this science is being revived by people who claim to be defending truth against a rising tide of ignorance. So again, remember, the red pill is unpleasant truth. Your unpleasant truth is that you are intellectually and genetically inferior. The idea that certain races are inherently more intelligent than others is being trumpeted by a small group of anthropologists, IQ researchers, psychologists, and pundits who portray themselves as notable dissidents standing up for inconvenient facts. Again, unpleasant truths. Isn't that something? All right. Psychologists. I know a famous psychologist who thinks along these lines. These ideas are reaching a new audience, which regards them as proof of superiority of certain races and certain genders. The claim that there is a link between race and intelligence is the main tenet of what is known as race science, or in many cases, scientific racism. Race scientists claim that there are evolutionary bases for disparities in social outcomes, such as life expectancy, educational attainment, wealth, incarceration rates between racial groups. In particular, many of them argue that black people fare worse than white people because they tend to be less naturally intelligent. In recent years, it has made a comeback. Many of its keenest promoters today are stars of the alt-right. All right, so let's stop there. All right, and I'm gonna bring you here. All right, now you can read this right here. I don't want to read this word because I think they're demonetizing people's videos if you read certain words, but this word signifies this: a male oppressed by the injustice of women who refuse to have blank with him. The term came into prominence in the corners of, and you can see that, a loose coalition of men's rights activists, bloggers, and participants in pickup forums. It is not apparently the quote's fault that he is unable to find a sexual partner. Rather, it is a form of oppression perpetrated upon him by women who ignore him or reject his advances. Blank engenders a hateful identity towards women premised on male fragility. The twisting of a dominant impulse into a cry for redressing injustice also echoes across the alt-right. All right? Its blank vision stresses the erasure of European culture and by elites and immigrants. Its rallying cry is to defend Western civilization from white genocide, a code used to masquerade the vision of cultural purity in the costume of collective victimhood. All right, so we got this, right? Which, you know, basically says, you know, the inherent facts are that I'm better than you, we're better than you, you're inferior. The current reality is the validation that you're inferior, and that's just the facts, and those facts aren't racist. Now, this is interesting. Here it says, the accusation of white privilege is a fertile fallacy wrapped in the self-righteous robes of social justice, as it reduces cultural and social issues down to immutable characteristics as opposed to individual decisions and responsibilities. Now, that would be nice if that's exactly how things went. But unfortunately, it's not. All right? Because we have issues like this. The United States is the only country the only country known to have prohibited the education of the enslaved. Who was enslaved? During the era of slavery in the United States, the education of enslaved African Americans, except for religious instruction, which was brainwashing, was discouraged and eventually made illegal in most of the southern states. So you have legislation. You have legislation restricting the educational advancement of an entire race of people, which, you know, let's take away slavery, let's take away economics, gives people a couple hundred years of an intellectual advantage. And mind you, if you're not learning, you know, those things atrophy. And also, you know, people tend to degenerate, right? So that brings me to another point. I'm going to show you guys one more thing. If I can find it. So here in Ohio, okay, Ohio is one of the more liberal states. Beginning in 1803, a series of laws known as the Black Laws was enacted in Ohio, in part to slow migration. Upon entering the state, any black person was required to post bond for $500 and file evidence of free status. African Americans were not permitted to work unless they carried documentation of their free status with them. While slavery was not legal, the rights of blacks were nonetheless severely limited. Suffrage was extended only to white male inhabitants, and blacks were denied other political rights, including the right to serve on a jury, to serve in the militia, or to testify against whites. African Americans were also denied the opportunity to send their children to public schools. All right, so this is back in 1803. All right, these things didn't change until 1960. A long time to go without education. That gives people if you can't read, you're kind of at a disadvantage, right? All right. So that's kind of interesting, right? So this here, the race science, right? Race science basically sets up a scenario that says this group of people is naturally inclined to be failures. As a result of them being failures, they're going to contribute negatively to society in these ways. All right. Now, none of this takes into consideration the social engineering, right? I just literally read you how Ohio was socially engineered to not allow blacks to read. Also, the southern states was socially engineered to outlaw education of black people. And this is as far back as 1800. And actually, when the transatlantic slave trade started around 1500 with maritime admiralty law, those blacks in Spain and Portugal were also not allowed to read. So this goes back to 1500. Social engineering written into laws that's not accounted for in these, quote, science-based red pill ideologies. But nowadays you literally have, you know, people who are part of these races quoting these ideologies saying, you know what, this is right and I live my life by this. So my question for those people is, when you get confronted with, you validated everything that we've said up until this point, how are you going to, you know, invalidate this? Then where are you at? That's the thing that people need to question. That's the thing that I want to open up for discussion. I would like to know the approach on how that works. All right. So now we have these people who have a not so high IQ, supposedly, based on these, quote, red pill race sciences. Okay. Now I'm going to tell you what they do with people who they feel are undesirable. U.S. eugenics program tried to breed out black people. All right. A sterilization program that ran in the U.S. state of North Carolina from 1929 to 1974 was explicitly designed to breed out black citizens and met with the UN definition of genocide, a study said this week. Almost 7,600 men, women, and children as young as 10 were surgically sterilized under the program that was created to serve the public good by preventing people deemed feeble-minded, which again is low IQ, low impulse control, based on red pill race science, and others from becoming parents. Most were coerced, but some women who had no other means of birth control sought out sterilization by having themselves declared unfit mothers. The newspaper was published in the American Review of Political Economy. It examined the years 1958 to 1968, a period in which more than 2,100 authorized sterilizations occurred across the United States, 100 counties. The authors found that for the period they studied, sterilization rates increased with the size of the unemployed black population, but unemployed whites and other races were not similarly targeted. Can we say pandemic? William Darity Jr., a professor at Duke University and co-author, said the United Nations definition of genocide cites intent to destroy in whole or part a national, ethnic, racial, or religious group. This includes, according to the text of the Geneva Convention, imposing measures intended to prevent births within the group. Now, my girlfriend actually brought up an excellent point. If we're going to talk about this, then we also have to talk about targeted abortions and Planned Parenthood, but that's another discussion for another day. North Carolina's disproportionate use of eugenic sterilizations on its black citizens was an act of genocide, said Darity. Previous work has shown that the eugenics program had disproportionately targeted black people, but the new paper shed light on the mechanics by which the program worked and its motives. Controlling black bodies and their reproductive choices is nothing new, added co-author Rhonda Sharp of the Women's Institute for Science, Equity, and Race. Our study shows that North Carolina restricted reproductive freedom using eugenics to disenfranchise black residents. The state set up a foundation in 2010 to compensate living victims of the program. The first checks, written for $20,000 each, were mailed to 220 of those survivors in 2014, according to North Carolina's The News and Observer newspaper. All right, so that's it. So my question to the black red-pilled people: do you really want to identify yourself with red pill? I'm not criticizing you and saying that some of the things that you believe as far as relationship and, you know, gender reciprocity are wrong or right. My question is this a rabbit hole you want to go down? And when you're confronted with this, how are you going to respond? That's my question. All right. So let me know in the comments. What do you think? And make sure that you smash that like button. All right. Please make sure that you hit that bell icon twice for notification. Please share this out to all of your groups. And I think this is a question that needs to be discussed. So let's do it. All right. Black Light Revelations 1 and 2. Make sure that you subscribe those, and I'll catch you guys on the next video. Peace.